Hi friends, welcome to mana Chandamama Kathalu. A lot of viewers have commented stating that the language of Telugu is good, but how about English, which can reach out to more people and more kids, which is the whole purpose of mana Chandamama Kathalu. So I thought that's the right thing to do, and here we go with our first story. And this is from the first edition again of Chandamama Kathalu from 1955 July. So July 1955 is when the first edition of Chandamama has started in English. 1947 July is when it started in Telugu. So this is a beautiful story from July 1955. The name of the story is The Comet, Part-1. A long time ago, King Chitrasen ruled the isle of Kundalini. At the time of our story, he had been on the throne for only 2 years. Yet he had made every effort to see that his subjects were happy and contented, and his rule rivaled Ramraj. Towards the end, he had cut all taxes by half. The people were really happy that the burden of taxes was reduced. They praised their king in verse and song. The good name of King Chitrasen echoed from every corner of his island. This was all good. Yet, even as the good name of the king was spreading far and wide, the treasure began to run dry. As the money dwindled in the royal coffers, the administration became topsy-turvy. The chief minister, however, was a clever fellow. He had foreseen some of these consequences. He had also been warning the king time and again about these. Only that the king was bent upon doing good to his people, and the minister's word fell upon deaf ears. So ultimately the minister had to give up. Now the treasury was quite empty. The minister had to do something about it. So he approached the king and submitted to him respectfully. Has it come to that? The king asked in surprise. I hate to say this, sir, but the balance in our treasury is hardly enough to pay the gardeners in our palace. In another week, the monthly payment of salaries for our administrative staff as well as the military falls due, the minister replied. Oh, is that so? We shall decide something in the court tomorrow. See to it that all the ministers and most of the important citizens shall attend, the king said. The minister nodded his head, but he could not guess what the king intended to do. Promulgation of new taxes was the only way of averting disaster. Holding court was going to solve no problem, the minister thought. Anyway, the king had to be obeyed. When the people heard the announcement asking everyone to attend the court, they did not know what it was all about. They began to guess according to their individual fancies. Some people actually went about saying, "Mark my words, the good king is going to do away with all the taxes this time." Quite a few credulous people believed this rumor to be true. Next day, the court was filled to overflowing with the many ministers and other officials, as many as an important citizen. King Chitrasen entered the court and sat on the throne. At the king's command, the chief minister addressed the gathering with these words. We have had the fortune of being ruled by a kind and charitable line of kings. They have always treated their subjects as their own progeny. The taxes that were levied on us have always been purely nominal, but even these have been reduced by half in the present regime, as is known to one and all of you. Now has arisen the question how to administer the land with such meager taxes. Someone stood up among the crowd and asked the chief minister, "Is it necessary to tax people in order to carry on with the administration?" The question amazed everyone. The chief minister nearly had a fit, but he controlled himself and went on. Compute for yourself, young man. What is the population of our kingdom? What would it cost to provide amenities for the entire population? The sick need medicine and treatment. Growing children require education. Enemies might attack us, and our defense forces must be there to protect us. How can all these expenses be met except through taxation? Where else are we going to look for money to provide our people with all these amenities? It is the duty of every citizen to understand the taxes and their purpose. At this point, the king interrupted the chief minister and said, What the chief minister says is quite true. But it is a matter of doubt whether we can resolve the old taxes and collect them easily. There were whisperings all over the court. One bold fellow stood up and said, Your Highness, you should think twice before you increase the taxes again. For one thing, it'll be great blow to the good name you have achieved so far. It's not a small matter that the king should go back upon his word. Think well, your highness. Think well. The king could see that there is some truth in his words. It was out of the question that he should restore the reduced taxes and lose the good name he had been earning ever since he ascended the throne. So other ways must be found to solve the problem. We certainly do not intend to go back upon a decision which was made once, he said. The taxes shall not be enhanced, nor new taxes will be levied. On the other hand, the minister has explained to us the nature of the present problem. Let someone come forward with a solution. There was a hush over the entire court. People looked at each other and saw only blank faces. The silence was broken by the commander-in-chief, who stood up and said, Your Highness, it's not a difficult thing to fill the coffers. There is a way of doing it. But it is a matter of great secrecy. I can reveal it to you only in privacy, sir. So a private audience of the king was granted to the commander-in-chief at 10 o'clock that night in the royal gardens. Meanwhile, the courtiers wondered what was up the sleeve of the commander-in-chief. They had to content themselves with the thought that the secret would only be out next day. The commander-in-chief went to the royal gardens at a stroke of 10 and met the king. He said to the king, Sir, our problem is to make the people happy and establish Ram Raj. It is not to be hoped that we will be able to raise a pie more through taxes. That leaves us with only one choice. Let us loot other kingdoms. It is the only legitimate thing that can be done under the rights of kinghood. It is for this very purpose that the armies and their commanders are maintained. I agree with you, Samarsen, but ours is an isle surrounded by the ocean. Imagine for a moment how much navy and military might is required to cross the ocean and conquer foreign territories, the king said. Sir, I shall answer for our military might, replied Samarsen. Then I leave the entire thing to you, Samarsen, said the king. For conscription and other things, you'll be requiring the royal authority. So take the royal seal. The commander-in-chief took the royal seal from the king and departed. He assembled all his military chiefs and told them about the conversation that he had with the king. All of them appeared to agree with the king in his doubts. But the commander-in-chief said, You must remember that our purpose is only to cross the ocean and loot other lands. We do not intend to conquer and subjugate them. I believe that we have enough military strength for our present purpose. Someone objected. But while we take away our armies abroad, the king will be left helpless in case of a people's upspring. In the name of Mother Kundalini, such a calamity can be easily averted, said an old veteran. An internal revolution is bound to be headed only by the youth. So we must conscript all the young fellows. This was considered a wise measure. A proclamation was drawn at once, conscripting all male citizens between 15 and 40, and the royal seal was put to it. The next day onwards, military officers went around various villages with the copies of the proclamation and drafted all available young men into the army. Not all, however, joined willingly. For heaven's sake, don't draft us and take us away from our kith and kin. We would rather pay taxes to any extent, they pleaded, but in vain. While those who voluntarily joined in the army went along with the officers, those who protested and resisted were tied hand and foot and dragged away mercilessly. Some people went on a deputation to the king and complained to him against the conscription. It cannot be helped, said the king. Some of you have already praised me in song and verse for my considerateness in the taxes. If I enhance them again, you will again write songs and verse abusing me this time. You know that we never go back upon our decision. What we have decided shall take place. The conscription was over, and one auspicious day the armies got into the military vessels. Just as the king said start to the troop carrying vessels, someone saw a mighty comet on the eastern direction. Its head was glowing bright like the moon, and its enormous tail was flung across the sky. Soon everyone started gazing at it. Awestruck, some of them said, "Oh, an ill omen." The court astrologer too considered this as a bad omen and suggested that the boats should postpone their voyage, and a more propitious time has been chosen. The commander-in-chief scoffed at this and said, "I have never heard of such nonsense in my life. We have got the bravest soldiers in the world. What can harm us?" The astrologer tried to persist himself, but to no purpose. As a matter of fact, there was no time to lose. An expedition like this was bound to take a lot of time. The commander-in-chief had a big task before him. He had to cross the ocean, fight away into other countries, loot them, and then come back. Then only could the coffers be filled and the economic crisis can be averted. That was the reason why the commander-in-chief ignored the ill omen. The king too supported him for the same reason. Finally, the commander-in-chief gave the orders and the ship set sailing, headed southeast in the direction of the comet. So that was part 1 of the story. Let's meet again next week and listen to the next part of the story. I hope the story was interesting to you, and I'm sure you'll get back for the next part of it. Thank you for watching this, and if you liked the video, please press the like button, share it with your friends, and I'm sure these stories have enthralled us all through our childhood and will do the same to the next generation as well. And subscribe to my channel so that you get notified whenever the next part comes up. Thank you.